Hey, what's going on? Zach D Productions here, and I am here for another one of these movies that I checked out recently videos. So I'll be briefly going over some movies that I have watched recently. Now, some of these movies I have watched before, but I revisited them, and some of them I have seen for the very first time recently. I have about 10 movies here I want to go over here, so let me know what movies you guys have been watching recently. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I think the first movie I'll go over here is John Wick Chapter 3, which honestly I think is the best of the John Wick films. And I do think that the upcoming fourth film definitely has potential to be the best one in the John Wick franchise. But we'll have to see, of course. But John Wick 3, I love the action in it. The action is definitely one of the things that I think make it the best. They really amped up the action, I think, in this movie compared to the first two. Now, the first two are great, don't get me wrong, but I think they just did everything right with the third one. So, yeah, John Wick 3, always really enjoyed it ever since I first watched it. Next, we have the movie Crank, which has Jason Statham, of course, and Jason Statham is one of my favorite actors of all time, probably, and yeah, definitely an interesting movie for sure. Has some cool action to it. Some humorous moments here and there. It's definitely not a film that's made for all audiences. And also, Chester Bennington makes a cameo in this movie, if you didn't know that already. So I thought that was pretty cool. So the movie Crank, I thought it was pretty good. So next we have the movie M3GAN, which is a more recent film. This actually came out this month. This was really the first big movie release of 2023, and when I first saw the trailers and stuff, I really didn't have any interest in watching it, but one day I did decide to give it a watch, and you know what? It actually surprised me. I was pretty invested in the story. Basically, the story involves this girl who loses her parents due to, I guess, the snow truck, and her aunt takes her in, and then she realizes that she's not really a good guardian, so she builds this humanoid robot doll thing, of course, M3GAN, and basically crap hits the fan from that point on. Basically, M3GAN turns into basically a killing machine, and I'm not going to spoil what happens at the end, but you can definitely tell that they're leaving things open for a sequel, so yeah. I thought it was a pretty fascinating movie, with the intriguing story and everything like that. It's kind of like a horror comedy. I don't know what you want to call it. I know that a lot of people say it's a horror / comedy type film, and yeah, I probably would put it in that realm of movie genres. So the movie M3GAN pleasantly surprised me. So next we have Godzilla vs. Kong, another movie that pleasantly surprised me. This is a movie franchise that I thought about looking into. I want to get into more movie franchises, so this was one of the ones that was on the list that I wanted to look into. So yeah, this was the one that I started out with. Maybe some people will say that I should have started off with the previous one before this one, but I started off with this one, and I've heard pretty good things about it, and yeah, I personally enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good film. The action scenes with, of course, Godzilla and Kong are really fun to watch, especially with the scenes in Hong Kong when they're fighting, and then, towards the end, they basically team up to take down this robotic, this sort of mechanical version of Godzilla. I don't know what it's called, but I thought that was pretty impactful and pretty cool that the two eventually teamed up against the enemy. So yeah, really good film, I'd say. So Godzilla vs. Kong. Next we have Mortal Kombat, the original Mortal Kombat from 1995. Definitely a classic. Now, I know that a lot of fans say that this movie is way better than the remake. Now, for me personally, I might like this movie just as much as the remake. I'm not sure how popular that opinion is, but I'm still kind of unsure between the two, which I like more, to be honest. Now, I didn't grow up with Mortal Kombat. Like, I didn't grow up with this film or even played the games growing up or anything like that. So maybe there's something that I'm missing. Like, maybe there's something about the remake that's not really consistent with the games, and maybe that's why people, I guess, nitpick it or whatever. I'm not sure, but either way, I do like the original, though. It's definitely a classic. Now, the effects are definitely of its time, definitely very dated, but for what the film is, it's pretty good. You know, I dig the martial arts in it, you know, the fighting scenes and everything. Just really cool stuff. So, Mortal Kombat, really good film for sure. Okay, so next we have From Russia with Love, which is, of course, a James Bond film. Definitely a classic. This is from the Sean Connery era, and I do know that there are some people who say that this is the best of the Sean Connery era. For me, I would still say that Goldfinger is the best of the Sean Connery movies, but From Russia with Love is still a solid film for sure. Next, we have another James Bond film, License to Kill, which is one of the Timothy Dalton films, and yeah, definitely a good one, I'd say. A bit darker. It is pretty dark for a James Bond film, and I personally dig it. I dig a lot of things about this movie, actually. And when it comes to Timothy Dalton, out of all the Bond movies that I have seen, he's probably my least favorite, but even in saying that, I still think he's a decent Bond actor. So, finally, for the James Bond films, we got Tomorrow Never Dies, which is one of the Pierce Brosnan films. Pierce Brosnan is maybe my favorite of the Bond actors. Honestly, either him or Daniel Craig, but I'm kind of leaning more towards Pierce Brosnan. I don't know. I just like Pierce Brosnan's performance a little bit better for some reason. And yeah, I think that, you know, when it comes to his first few films, they're just classics. They really are. And Tomorrow Never Dies, definitely a good one. I mean, it definitely had a lot to live up to coming off of GoldenEye, which I'd say is probably the best Bond film of all time, if you ask me. So Tomorrow Never Dies, I mean, you have a good cast in here. You know, you have, of course, Pierce Brosnan, Michelle Yeoh, and a bunch of other people. So yeah, definitely a cool movie for sure. Great action, especially the motorcycle scene, and, you know, just the action sequences in this movie are pretty great. So Tomorrow Never Dies, definitely a great Bond film. So next we have Batman, 1989 Batman, which is definitely a classic for sure. Some people say it's the best of the Batman films, of all the live action ones, and if someone wanted to make that argument, I couldn't really argue with that. Now, when it comes to my favorite Batman actor, I'd have to go with Christian Bale. Now, I know that a lot of people would go with Michael Keaton, but Michael Keaton is probably my second favorite of the Batman actors. Almost said Bond, but we're talking about Batman here. Now, I do like Robert Pattinson as Batman as well. Ben Affleck, I think, is a good Batman, but he probably is my least favorite of the Batman actors, if I'm being honest. But yeah, Michael Keaton, I do dig his performance as Batman, and you of course have Jack Nicholson as the Joker in this movie, and yeah, pretty cool cast and everything. So definitely a classic superhero film. And honestly, Batman 89 is probably one of the first movies that come to mind when I think of essential superhero films that you just have to watch. Definitely a great movie and definitely a classic. So the last movie here, we got Eternals, which is a Marvel film, and now I did watch this movie before, but I did revisit it recently, and I'll be honest, the replay value of this movie is not that strong, if I'm being honest. I mean, after giving it more time, I've realized it probably is one of the weaker films of the MCU. It's also way too long, which I know is a complaint that a lot of people have. The movie is way too long, maybe a little slow-paced. I know that that's an argument that some people have made. Yeah, there's a lot of slow moments. You know, it takes too long to build things up, you know. Yeah, definitely not a fan of this film like I was when I first watched it, but I mean, I'd still would say it's an okay film, but it doesn't go any further than that. I mean, I don't think it's that great, to be honest. So, yeah, I probably won't be returning to this one anytime soon. I mean, and I'm really dreading a sequel now because I know that they're going to do an Eternal sequel, and after this, I'm kind of dreading it, to be honest. I really don't have that much interest. But yeah, I'd say it's one of the weaker MCU films. So there you go, The Eternals. So let me know what you think. Those are some movies that I have checked out recently, some movies that I watched recently. So let me know what you think. Have you seen these movies? Do you like them? Feel free to let me know. So on that note, thanks for watching and have a good one.